All right, today we're going to talk about congruent segments and the segment addition postulate. So you should be following along in your printed notes. It should look exactly like what I'm going to be having here on the screen. So if you take a look here, it says warm up. Plot the point in the coordinate plane. Be sure to label your points. So if you remember this from Algebra 1, point A is 8, -5. So the first number is your x value. The second one is your y value. The first one will tell you how far to go left or right, and the second one will tell you how far to go up or down. So let's do the first one together, and then you can pause the video and do the rest yourself. So if you notice your grid here, it's counting by twos. So this here is actually 2, 4, 6, 8. So if I want to go over to 8, I'm going to go over to the right 8, and then I have to move my screen a little bit, and then down 5. So let's see. I'm going to go to the right 8 and then down 5. So 2, 4, 5 would be halfway between 4 and 6. So right there, and I'm going to call that point A. So why don't you pause the video and see if you can do the rest of these. And when you're done, call me over and I'll take a look at them. All right, how'd you do on that? All right, let's take a look at now some of the notes for this next section. So we now have, so I'll erase this, congruent segments. So if you take a look, now we're talking about segments, not lines. And when you're talking about a segment, you're going to label it by the two endpoints, so A, B, and then the segment symbol above it. So this no longer will have lines or arrows at the either end. So remember, this here would be a line, AB, if I put the little arrows on the ends. But the one right here, this one here would be the segment symbol. So if I'm talking about a segment and I want to show that the segment lengths are the same, you do that by putting this little tick mark right here and here in the middle of each one of those segments. And that indicates that those two segments are the same length. Whether they look it or not doesn't really matter. You have to go by what is labeled. And so if it's labeled that they are congruent, then they are congruent. So if we go over here, line segments that have the same length are called, whoops, let's get a color you can see, congruent segments. So fill your notes in while I'm filling these in. Congruent segments. All right. You can say the length of AB is equal to the length of CD, or you can say that segment AB is congruent to CD. So the symbol, an equal sign with like a little squiggly on top, means is congruent to. So I could either say here that AB is equal to CD, or I could say AB is congruent to CD. Now notice, if you're talking about their lengths, you don't put the little segment symbol on top. So if you're using an equal sign, you just do A, B, and CD. But if you've got the little segment symbol on top, then you're using the congruent symbol. So now let's talk about the segment addition postulate. What the segment addition postulate says is that if A, B, and C are collinear points, so let's remind ourselves what that vocabulary means. Collinear means on the same line, or in this case, on the same segment. So they're just saying that A, B, and C are all on the same segment. And point B is actually between A and C. Then you can say that the length of AB plus the length of BC has to equal the length of AC. And that makes sense, right? If I add this length to this length here, right? If I add those two together, then obviously I'm going to have the whole length. And that's all the segment addition postulate says. It's really pretty intuitive. So let's just take a look at the first practice one, and then I'm going to let you go ahead and try the rest yourself, but we'll do number one together. Plot the points in the coordinate plane, then determine if segment ST and UV are congruent. We're trying to find out, are they the same length? So let's plot this. So I have S is -1, 2. So it's hard for me to plot on this graph, but I'll try. And this would be S. Always make sure you label your points. T is -1, +1, so that would be right here. And that would be T. And U, I'll do U in a different color. U is 3, -5, so right here would be U. And V is 3, -2, right here. So that would be V. So if I look at it, ST is one unit, one length there, but UV is 1, 2, 3. So I would say that those are not congruent. All right, try the rest, and if you have any questions, let me know.